Okay, I think we might start. So, hello everybody. As Katie said, I can't see you or hear you, but you can see us. My name's Kathryn, and I'm one of the care assessors for Life Without Barriers around the state. So we're involved in recruitment and training and all things assessment. So before we start on tonight on the webinar, I'm also going to introduce you to Katie and Anna, and then they can just introduce themselves and let you know a little bit about them. So first of all, Katie, our care assessor. Katie, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Yeah, hi everybody. I kind of did already, but I'm really glad you could jump on and join us for the webinar. I am an assessor, but really my capacity for the webinar is to actually answer any questions about being a foster carer. So our family have been foster carers for about 18 years. We've fostered a lot of little people in all different types of care. So from emergency, short-term, primary care, and respite care. We've kind of pretty well managed to care from newborn babies right up until sort of older teenagers. So Kathryn will present the webinar and Anna will answer some tricky questions. Oh, my audio's not good. I'm sorry, I can move. And yeah, I'm just here as the carer ambassador to answer questions that you have about caring or anything about anything that's presented in the webinar.
Lovely, thanks, Katie. And Anna, our ops manager, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Anna Wyatt. I'm the operations manager for Life Without Barriers in Tasmania. And I'm really excited to seeing so many people interested in our information session. And I'm sure across Kathryn as one of our carer assessors and Katie as our carer ambassador, and myself, we have a broad knowledge base to hopefully answer all your questions, may they be big or small.
Okay, thank you. So as far as the questions are concerned, as Katie mentioned, pop them in the chat. We're going to stay on slides just for a little while, so at the front end, and that's mostly to keep me on track because I tend to wander off on a tangent. So we'll have a look at some slides. They're pretty much dot points talking to you about what we do at Life Without Barriers and what foster care looks like. I'll stop every couple of slides in case there's some questions building up, but please ask as many questions as you like. Don't be worried that you're asking a silly question. You won't be. In fact, questions that you ask, other people will probably be wanting to ask as well. So before we go on and start, I'm just going to get rid of. Hold on a minute. Now this is. Oh, here we go. Beautiful. I'm just going to do an acknowledgement of country. Hang on, everyone. Now I'm going to have to go back. Right. Here we go. And so just to begin, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Pakenara and Palawa people, who are the Tasmanian Aboriginal people, and of course we're on their land at the moment, and I wanted to pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and also any emerging leaders coming up as well. So, a quick overview. We're going to be answering questions today about foster care, and most of those questions have come from people who have been involved with us as foster carers and who have been involved with us in the early stages, and they're questions that they're really, really keen to find out answers for. So as I say, we'll talk a little bit about Life Without Barriers. We'll talk about foster care. We'll talk a little bit about children in care. We'll answer some questions and talk to you about what it looks like to become a foster carer, and then we'll answer more questions. So it's really important that tonight that we're here to answer all the questions that you have for us. So who are we? Who's Life Without Barriers? So our goal is always to partner with people to change their lives for the better. We support over 23,000 people in over 400 communities around Australia, and we support groups of people through providing a range of services including foster care, family supports, disability support aged care, mental health, alcohol and other drug addictions, and refugee and asylum seeker support, amongst other things. So, what is foster care? For children who need time away from their family, foster care can provide a safe and supportive home where they can heal and grow. We might just need a foster carer for overnight, for a weekend, a week, 3 months, 6 months, or until that child ages out as a young adult. There's different terms for foster care. You'll hear us at Life Without Barriers, we tend to use the term foster care. Others might use the term out-of-home care or family-based care. They all mean the same thing. But we are, with the children and young people coming into care, we are always needing foster carers. So there's different types of foster care. There's 4 main types of foster care. There's respite care, emergency and short-term care, long-term care, and kinship care. So we'll start with kinship care because that sits off to the side to some degree. Kinship care is when a young person comes into care, but they have relatives or close family friends or significant people in their life that are already around that can step up and look after them for that period of time. So we don't go through the same process as recruiting foster carers that don't know the child. These could be aunties and uncles, they could be grandparents, they could be older brothers or sisters. They could also be a really good family friend. There may not be, a blood link there. So this is really important whenever possible because it provides for the children or the young person a nicer transition out of the home. So they already know the people they go to and they're still family. So the other two that kind of sit together a bit are long-term care and respite care. So when a child or a young person comes into care, what we look for is what we call a primary caregiver, and that's somebody that can look after them 24 hours a day. So that's where they're living, that's where they're residing. They're going to school from there, or kindy or college or whatever it is that they're involved in. And then to partner with the long-term foster carers or the primary foster carers are our respite carers. And they are hugely, hugely important. A respite carer is there for a number of reasons. They're there normally as a second family. So it helps children understand that, there's more than just one safe family or a couple of safe families out there. There's a lot of safe families out there, and respite care can actually, provide evidence of that for a child or young person. It can also give us another set of eyes on the child. You would know yourselves that children and young people have different relationships with different people in their lives, and they may tell the respite care is something that concerns them that they haven't felt comfortable telling their primary caregiver, and vice versa. So it provides additional relationships there. The other thing is that it obviously provides a bit of time out for the primary caregiver, which is especially important if they've got family of their own, or they're a couple, or they just want to stay in bed for the weekend, or they want to go jet skiing or whatever it might be. It's their time. The other thing that's worth mentioning about respite care is we ask you to not to commit to, but if you can, to put aside a weekend a month as a minimum, because that way, when the child's coming to see you every weekend a month, you're starting to build up that relationship, and it's a predictable arrangement. However, on top of that, you might have a shack at St Helens or something like that. You may want to spend some additional time with the child or young person, and that can often be arranged as well. So those two, whenever possible, they sit together. And then you've got a bit of a grey area in the middle, that's sort of emergency short-term care. And that's a little bit harder to define. So we have a bank of carers that we can call in a crisis or in an emergency and say, we've got these kids, they've got to come in now. the police might have removed them from home. There might be, the parents might have been arrested. They might be in hospital. Someone's involved in a car accident, all sorts of reasons. And so we need our short-term carers. They're so important. And what happens with them is that they will end up with a child or a young person for just a little while, or not too long anyway, while we find somewhere a little bit more permanent for them. So I'll stop that particular topic there and just check in with you guys and just see whether you've got any questions specifically on the types of care that you'd like us to explain a bit more. All this, I guess it's worth saying at this point that this process tonight is pretty much a general overlay of what foster care looks like. If you go on, if you're interested in finding out more, then we do come and sit with you and talk to you in detail about your own personal circumstances, and answer your own questions in more detail. So just checking in. Has anyone got any questions at this point, or shall I continue? Anyone there, Katie? You're on mute, Katie.
Yeah, I did just realise that. Thank you. Yeah, look, absolutely. We do have a question, and it's from Brett, and he says, if you only want long-term care, is that okay? He wants to know sort of potentially, what the parameters are around, whether or not, if you are, perhaps, correct me if I'm wrong, Brett, if you're registered as a long-term carer, I think Brett wants to know what the assurance is that it will be a long-term placement and not a shorter-term placement.
Well, I guess it's good to say right up the front end that there are no guarantees. So whilst a child or a young person may come in with the plan that they will remain in care until they age out, other things can happen. So under the legislation that we work under, the biological parents can come back. They may be living a different type of life. They may feel that they can keep their child or young person safe. They can come back and they can make a case for why that child should be returned to them. In other cases, relatives suddenly pop up. We had a case not that long ago where a grandmother was found in Queensland and came down to Tasmania and wanted to give a home to her grandchildren. Another case, a father was found in Hobart and he didn't know he was a father. So whilst the intention might be, for all sorts of reasons, for a child to be in long-term care, and quite often that occurs, we can't guarantee it. We can plan for it, but we can't guarantee it. Anna, do you want to add anything to that for Brett?
Well, maybe only that we working under two therapeutic models to support our carers and the children that live with them. One is the care model, the children and residential experiences, and the other one is the TCI, therapeutic crisis intervention training or model that we do. And part of our principles coming from these models is family involved, and that is important, and research shows that the outcome of children out of home care that can't live with family is much higher if the family stays involved in the child's life in a safe way somehow. But the goal is also, of course, always to try, if at all possible, and often it is not, unfortunately, for child safety, to work with the parents to overcome the barriers that brought their children into care. And it's often an intergenerational cycle that happens again and again. And to do what they can so that the child can live within their family. But unfortunately, often that doesn't happen. However, that's the goal. And even as a long-term carer, it can come that the teenage child is interested in their parents more than it ever used to be, and is voting with their feet and just wants to go home. So there are certain different scenarios possible. So unfortunately, it's not a guarantee that when you are a long-time carer that you will care for a child until it turns 18 or becomes an adult.
And we have another question, and Kathryn as well. Nikki's question is, does adoption occur from fostering? And is it possible that adoption can come from fostering?
Anna, I'll let you answer that one. It's a bit different in Tassie to New South Wales and other states.
It is, and I think New South Wales is actually the only state in Australia where foster care can end up into adoption. So in Tasmania, that is a very different process and is separated from foster care or out-of-home care. There are other scenarios if a child is very integrated or becomes very integrated into the life of their foster family. And, you know, then the child safety officer can go back to court, and the guardianship that lies usually with the department can transfer to the foster carer under circumstances. But that includes, you know, many things that need to be ticked off to make sure that that really is in the best interest of the child. But adoption is a completely different process, because there you wouldn't look into the child returning to the biological family, for example.
Does that make sense? Are there any comments, questions? No? Well, I can't see your comments. So, Katie, give me a thumbs up if I for me to keep going. Keep going? Okay. All right. Okay. Right, where are we up to? Different types of care. Okay, what else we got? A little bit of information about what's going on in Tassie. So 1,104 children in 2019 were residing out of their parents' care in June. So it's a snapshot and it gives you some indication. And Anna may well know what the current figures are. I don't know, but it's not going to be any less now, you know, a couple of years ahead. It's probably worth just mentioning residential care, as Anna mentioned before, because you can see that there in that circle. And maybe some of you, all of you, don't know what the difference is. So foster care is predominantly with a family or a single person in their home, or a group of people, family members. It's family-based care. Kinship care, we've already explained. Residential care is when, for whatever reason, the child or the young person isn't suited to be in a family setup. Could be the extent of trauma that they've experienced. It could be some of their behaviours can be a bit challenging in a family unit. And so at some point, an assessment would have been made of that young person's needs, and it would have been felt that it was better and more therapeutic for them to be living in a home, because they're homes, to be living in a home with specially trained, highly trained youth workers and practitioners who are looking after them in that home, to get them to the point, because they would need more intensive therapeutic work to be able to help them to resettle into a community. So that's residential care. That's not something that if you come forward to foster, as you guys are interested in, that's not something that you would be involved in. That's kind of off to the side, but it just gives you an indication that there's another 6% in that residential care pocket. Does that make sense? Yep. I'm just going to look at you, Katie. You just nod or shake your head if you want me to stop or something, because I can see you. Okay. All right. Why do children come into care? So I'm sure a lot of you have ideas about this already, and this won't be a surprise to you. So neglect's a big one, and it is incorporated in all the others anyway, some form of neglect. Abuse, being emotional, physical or sexual, or all of them. Parental mental health conditions, and that's that happens perhaps more than you might think it does. You know, if mum or dad are struggling, or whoever the caregiver is struggling, and they need to go into an inpatient unit, or they're psychotic, or they're really struggling to look after the child, then you know, it can be about supporting the parents by providing a safe place for the child while they get well. Parental death. So, you know, God forbid parents would die in a car accident or something like that, and there'd be no one to look after the children, but that, you know, that can happen. And if the child has significant needs, and by that we mean that as much as the parent loves the child, because the parents love the children, as much as the parent loves the child, for whatever reason, they may not have the skill set or the capacity to care for a child in the way that that child needs to be cared for. So in a case like that, and if you go through and you decide to do some training with us, there's a particular case study that we, you know, talk to you about a little girl who was born with spina bifida, and you know, mum couldn't look after her for the early years in her life, so she came into care. So all sorts of different reasons, and a great combination of all those as well. Has anyone got any questions about that one? No, all good. Okay, who can be a carer? Well, the short answer to that is pretty much everyone. So if we look down these little dot points, you can read them anyway. The age criteria is, I think in Tassie it's over 18. However, it's really much, we would look more openly at someone, you know, in their early 20s. Over the age of 18 is quite young if you're going to take on a child that has, you know, significant needs. So different states vary with that as well. The well and healthy is relative. So part of the assessment process, part of the application process, is that you need to pop along to your GP and get your GP just to sign off that you don't have any particular conditions that would prevent you fostering. So you can have asthma and diabetes and, you know, all these sorts of things, and mental health conditions. The main problem is, or the main thing is, that we need to know you're going to be okay, that whatever condition you have is being well managed, well medicated, and, you know, you're going to be able to manage as a foster carer. Regular source of income, and that can be income support, that can be Centrelink income, not an issue at all. And in fact, we have everyone from doctors, you know, working at Launceston General as foster carers, to people who are living in government housing on Centrelink, and everything in between. All those are completely acceptable. From any culture, faith, ethnicity, religion, sexuality, or gender identity or expression. That's pretty much says what it is. Single or in a relationship, willing to undergo background checks. So the background checks that become part of the application process are a criminal record check, a child safety check, and we also need you to have your Working with Vulnerable People card. The background checks, if you have a criminal record, that's not in and of itself going to be problematic in your journey forward. It depends how long ago it was, it depends what it is, it depends what you've done since then, and a whole lot of other things. So I don't want that to scare anybody off, but what we would need to do is we would obviously need to ask more questions and just kind of find out where you're at now with respect to that. So about your home and family, with or without children, you can rent or own your own home. You do need to have, in most cases, there can be some exceptions, but you do need to have a spare room in your home. And quite importantly, everyone in your home needs to be just as willing and active in the application process. You know, if we've got, you know, a partner or a child that is against it, that can really cause a lot of problems and disharmony for the family down the track. Okay, good, keep going. Right, just might have a little drink of water. So again, this is fairly self-explanatory. We'll always look for great carers. You do need, if you're living a full life, it's going to be pretty tricky for you to care for a child, you know, as a primary caregiver. You know, you might be better suited to be looking at short-term care or respite care, because you do need, you know, you're going to need that time. So having plenty of time to spend with the child or young person, being okay and accepting and open to helping the child to return safely home to their families. And safely is the big word there. If it's not safe, you know, we're not doing it. Believing in children, and that all children will do well if they have the right care and support. It doesn't matter about your history, it doesn't matter about your level of functioning. You can still do really well in life and have a great life. You need to want to share your home and your resources with children who need help. You need to understand why children do things, and we will help you do that. We have training that free training that you're engaged in prior, like just as part of your application process. And that is, that's very honest training, and we do talk to you about, you know, what can happen. And additionally, after you are approved, that opens up, you know, a whole portal of training, and whoever comes out and sees you next, you know, if you want to go forward, we can talk you through that. But it's pretty much anything you're going to need to know. We have virtual training and we have face-to-face training. So being prepared to help a child manage tough feelings of missing their family and of being in care and of all that stuff, just understanding that they're going to come to you with a lot of grief and a lot of loss and a lot of confusion. And then also, obviously, believing that it's important that children feel included in any family when they're in foster care, that they are part of your family. You become part of their family and their family network. In the same way an aunt and uncle might, or, you know, you might be caring for your friend's children, you know, if they're away or something like that. They're not separate to your family. They're part of your family. Okay. Oh, good. Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, no, that's good. It means I can have a cup of tea. Yeah.
Sure. Now, we've got a great question. And it's from Amanda. Thank you, Amanda. And she says, if you're single and you work part-time and you're fostering a child, you know, say, you know, a little one, say from...
I can't say again for me, Katie. I couldn't...
Oh, the question, can you hear me? It's okay.
I can hear you when you're a bit closer to the mic.
Oh, okay, lovely. If you're single and you're working part-time and you're fostering a little child who's sort of under school age, is it okay for them to go to childcare when you're working? It's a great question. Thanks, Amanda.
Well, and I'll get Anna to chime in here as well, but it always comes back to what's in the best needs of the child. There's a lot of children that come into care with the trauma overlay, which means their brain has developed differently, that placing that child in a high stimulus environment like daycare is actually, it's not going to turn out well. You know, you're going to get a phone call saying, come pick up your child, and, you know, the child's going to be really unhappy. However, on the other side of that, there can be children that absolutely, you know, that can be part of their, you know, repair is actually being in a really supportive daycare environment and having further people available to nurture them. But can you add to that, Anna?
Yeah, I think it is a good spot to speak about our matching. So when you become a foster carer, you go through an assessment process, and your wishes and views and circumstances are explored, so that then a recommendation can be made. What would be the to which child your personal circumstances would be mostly suited. And if you're working part-time and you're caring for a little one, absolutely, childcare, it can also be actually a positive thing to give children that didn't experience it before the social interaction that they need and so on. It can happen. So, but what Kathryn referred to, there are of course children that really need the one-to-one quite desperately, and we wouldn't match you then with a child if you're working part-time or need childcare. that is of that level. So absolutely, that is it's possible. Many children go into childcare, yeah, it's a question of matching. And may I just, although we're not quite there yet, also say, whenever we approach you and say, hey, we think we have a child that we just got a referral for, which we think would fit awesome into your family, you always can say no. So that's absolutely a given. You can't be forced, and we want you to consider it very carefully, because nothing is worse, of course, than that placement then breaking down and the child has to move and you feeling awful. So that is a really important part of the entire placement, to get that matching right and be honest about what you can do and what you can't do. And in our process, we will actually ask you to attend virtually via phone or face-to-face if you can, a meeting with us and the allocated child safety officer, and ask all questions you want to know and what expectation maybe there are in regards to transport and family contact, and what you need as well. So that is then considered, and afterwards everyone makes an informed decision, said, yeah, absolutely, that's the family for that child, or no, actually, I think as a carer, I can't support that.
Thanks, Anna. I've got another question here.
Then I'm going to come to you, Katie, before we move on as well.
I'm wondering, do you want me to read the question because of the sound quality, Katie?
Is it really that bad?
It's, for me, I can hear you when you're close to the mic, but when you're sitting back,
yeah, that's not great.
But it's when you're close to the mic. But I wanted to, and yes, we'll get to that other question. But just before I lose it from my head, I wanted to come to you, Katie. And when we're looking at attributes of a great carer, you being, a great carer and all that. I just wanted, in your head, and of course you're now involved in assessments and, very involved with carers that are coming up through the process. So you've kind of got the benefit of both sides. When you look at your journey from beginning to now, if you had to pick three things or one thing, what's the top of the tree, do you reckon, for great, for me, it would be patience, because I don't have any, but for you, what would it be?
Yeah, what attributes? You're talking about the attributes of carers.
Yeah, what do you need?
Well, I think there are a lot of them. I mean, I wouldn't be able to pick one, but I definitely think having that resilience in your own ability, to be able to, just stick it in and just try and keep doing the best for the child. Like it is hard. It is like a roller coaster, like the proverbial roller coaster. There are tough times, but but I always do tell people who are thinking about foster caring that it is also one of the most rewarding and incredible things that we've ever done. And just we're still going 18 years later. So I think, yeah, look, I really love it. And you do have to have a pretty sound commitment to wanting to keep training, because we know that we're just learning new things all the time about kids who come into care and the reasons why and what they go through. But it kind of brings me to another question that really has a lot to do with what we're talking about and what kids go through. And this question is, how much trauma history of the children do we get as carers? And I think that's a fantastic question, because sometimes these little people come, Amanda, with very, very little. Like we don't know a lot about them, or certainly as carers we're told less than a caseworker might know, or less than one of the practitioners might know. What the carers get to know is basically on a needs to know basis. So there might be a whole history about the child and their situation, and we might not get to hear a lot. Or you might, there are obviously certain things you need to know before you say yes or no to a placement. Like Anna was saying, you can say no based on some of that information. So yeah, if anyone wants to speak to how much history we get about the kids, apart from what I've said.
Yeah, Anna, do you want to do you want to talk to that? Just, the process, I guess, and what we're allowed to share and, how that works?
Yeah. Usually, or how it should work is if we get a referral for a child or a young person, then we receive something that's called a needs assessment that goes a little bit into the trauma history or the circumstances of the child, what the child needs to be cared for, to be nurtured for, and a little bit about their experience. And also things like if the experience that the child had maybe in other foster care placements before. Let's say it's known that it doesn't work well together, or doesn't respond well to animals, or pulls the tail of dogs, or something like that is in there, or what, that it doesn't sleep, that it's not nappy trained, these kind of toilet trained, sorry, these kinds of things are there. But sometimes the child is removed. It's Friday 4:30 and we get a phone call, and the child safety officer drives with the child in the car around the city because we need a bed for the child. So sometimes you don't know anything. And that's where these real emergency carers are of great value, to give that child in distress in that situation a home and a bed and some warmth and welcoming. And often it is not so important to know the trauma history of the child. It's more important to know and feel comfortable how to respond to a child in certain situations. And that is where then the support and the ongoing training comes in from us as well. And we all, if you are a foster carer, you have to be open to ongoing learning. It's every foster carer in Tasmania needs to do at least 2 annual trainings that can be online. We have a fantastic online My Learning system that you can do, I don't know, when you're waiting for the bus, or we have to face-to-face trainings, and sometimes at your work you might have actually relevant training as well if you're a teacher or something like that. But that knowledge, that the wish to develop your skill set is so important, because trauma is such a wide field, and there are always new things to improve how you respond to children.
Thanks, Anna. So, any other
questions?
Can you hear me well? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Right, lovely. I've got another question, and the question is about school and about the distance that you live from the school that a child might go to. So Nikki wants to know, is it advice to continue making sure the child attends the school they're at, or if it's easier, if it's closer to where you live and that school might be a better support for the child, is that something that will be considered?
Yeah, and look, again, we come back to the best interests of the child, and there's a lot of things that need to be taken into account with that. If a child's only coming in for a couple of weeks, and they've come away from their parents, they've come away from their home, but their school is a place of safety and somewhere that they feel that they belong, that's their community. It's just so important that they remain at that school, because they've lost so much. So we do ask, and Anna will be able to give the kilometres. I don't know what they are, but we do ask that that the foster carers will keep the child at that school to be able to maximise those supports and the comfort for the child. Because otherwise they're losing their friends, losing their teachers. It's just the loss is maximised. But again, you see that's also where matching comes in, because we're not going to, we're not going to be looking at a foster carer in Burnie for a child that loves going to school in Devonport, for instance. So we look at that as well. On the other hand, though, if it's a younger child, or if that child is not engaging in the school that they're in, or is being terribly bullied in the school, or that there's better services for that, meeting that child's needs in another school, then that's the sort of thing that would be considered you know, insofar as moving the child, and the, you know, the age of the child, all that sort of thing comes into place. It really is about every child and young person that comes into care having a kind of a wraparound conversation about what's in the best interests of the child. How can we support the child in the best way? Also look at whether, you know, this child, it's a long-term placement, you know, where they are in the year, all sorts of things. But Anna, is there a distance? Is there a
No, there is not a distance. Like, it's a bit about what, again, how it fits into your family as well. And sometimes there is the consideration that, let's say, all your children go to one particular school, that it is only sustainable then over time for the child to transfer maybe into the same school or a school closer to the carer. The unfortunate thing is that we need foster carers, which is not unfortunate, but, you know, we need foster carers because often we get referrals in one area and there are no foster carers. So you have to, you know, liaise with school, and the child will need to change schools. Sometimes, as Kathryn mentioned, there are other considerations around support networks and circumstances individual to the child about a transfer or a change of school. But that is then a decision that the care team around the child should make. So that is the child safety officer, the foster carer, you know, the service providers, counselors, school that are part of the child meet regularly to make discuss these decisions and talk about it.
And it might be a good spot, maybe there's a spot for this a little bit later on, I'm not too sure, but because there's a couple of questions have come up now, and we're going back to, you know, that wraparound support for the child and the ongoing reevaluation of and review of the child's needs. And, you know, what within the system we have what's called a care team, and so you're not on your own trying to work out these, you know, these things, and the different people in the care team will all be it's a bit like a jigsaw. They'll all be able to have their views, and they have their expertise, and they'll all be able to feed into that. And I think, Anna, if I'm right, you know, these care teams, you know, the school is often part of them, so child safety, yourself as a foster carer, you know, it may be relatives of the child, you know, it could, there are cases where there's, you know, parents might be involved. The child's an older child, the child, you know, they can feed into the care team. If there's a particular specialist that's working with the child, they can feed into the care team. And so these decisions are very much made in a wraparound way. So anything else that I've missed, Anna, with the no? Okay, all right. Are we is more questions? Thumbs up, or you're on mute?
No, thanks. Sorry. No, I think it's going really well. There was one question about how many children are coming into care for the first time, as opposed to the statistics around how many children are moving through the system, like having to change placements, you know, moving through foster care placements, compared to, how many sort of new kids are coming in for the first time. So I'm not sure if we do have those statistics, but we can we'll be sending everyone out an email, and if you've got, you know, if you've got specific questions like that, we can always find the answer to them.
Yeah, we can. I think, well, first of all, it'll depend on the day that you ask, you know, because, you know, the numbers today are going to be different to yesterday and you know, following day. So, but absolutely, and that goes for any questions. If there's a, you know, question out there that, you know, that we don't know the answer to, and you know, and that it's important, you know, important for you that you know, then do pop it in the chat, and, you know, we can find these things out for you. That's not, you know, that's not an issue. Okay, next slide. Oh, missed that bit. Well, there you go. Great foster carer. There we are. Didn't know that was there. All right. How do you become a foster carer? So this is sort of a bit of a these information sessions. We run them face-to-face and we run them virtually. So after you've attended one of these, you'll have a chat to somebody, as I mentioned, in more detail about fostering. So in the north of the state, you will see my face. I will make contact with you and provide you with some more information that is specific to you. There's no, I guess it's worth saying right at the front end, there's no pressure. You're not locked into anything. You're not committed to anything. It's counterproductive for us to try and pressure you into anything, because it's just not going to work for anyone. So right at that front end, we will provide you with more information that is more specific to you and your family circumstances to help you to make a decision. We'll come out to your home and we'll do that and sit and have a cup of tea with you or whatever, because it's really important that we get a sense as assessors of what the what the lay of the land is, whether you're on a sprawling rural property or whether you're living in a one-bedroom apartment. Just helps us kind of to be able to understand the situation that you're living in. So getting started on your background checks, I touched on this before. So we look for, we get you to complete a criminal record check, and we pay for that. Child safety check. The only thing that you pay for is your Working with Vulnerable People card, and that we only require you to have a volunteer card to foster. Some of you may already have a Working with Vulnerable People card if you're working in a related industry, and we can use that. But otherwise, we get you to get the volunteer card. That costs $25 or something like that. It's not very expensive. As mentioned, you'll take part in a 2-day introductory training. So the next trainings are running before Christmas. So we've got a virtual training coming up, which will be during the week across 3 days, school days, so that people who've got kiddies at school can, they can attend. I think that's running from 10 to 2:30 on 3 consecutive Tuesdays. We've also got face-to-face training. Face-to-face training at the moment is a little bit different. That'll be running on a Saturday, and that'll be 2 full days. Not too sure where it's going to be yet, but it'll be either Burnie, Devonport or Launceston, depending on where we need to run it. There'll be part of your application is to be completing paperwork. So the sort of paperwork, we'll provide you with some forms for you to get some references, and you'll need 2 references each. So if you're a couple, sort of 2 each, you can have a referee that knows you both, and they're really character references more than anything else, and they talk about you as a person. You have a copy of those. We also, as I mentioned, get you to pop along to your GP and just make sure that there's nothing, no part of your health that is going to be negatively impacted by fostering. We also, which is a bit of a curly one, we also ask you to write your life story. And when I say that, it doesn't need to be 20 pages. It can also be a timeline. It's really to give us an indication as assessors of where you come from, of the sorts of experiences you've had coming up to care. It helps us understand what we're going to need to support you. So if you have a mental illness, for instance, if we have foster carers with bipolar disorder that experience depression, anxiety, we need to know that so that you can pick up the phone and say, okay, I'm pretty rough at the moment. I need a bit of extra time. So we know, so it's not a surprise to us. You're not having to, keep secrets from us. The other thing is because it helps us understand your experience of loss, any losses or grief that you've experienced in your life, so that we can be careful when we're matching with you. What we don't want is to place a child or a young person in your home that's going to re-traumatize you, without meaning to. But so if you grew up in a home where you had experienced family violence or you'd been sexually abused, and you are looking after a young person who comes straight into your home and doesn't stop talking about their experiences, that can trigger you. If you're not in a good place, if you haven't received the care and attention you needed to help you process that trauma, that can be quite detrimental to your health. So we need that information. We don't go into details. We just want to know that it's happened and that, that you're okay now. And I guess the other part of it is that in exploring a little bit more your own experiences of loss, whether that's divorced parents or, auntie dying or, whatever it might be, that can help you link in and empathise with a young person's own experiences as well. So you can call on your own experience. So that document comes to your assessor, and we then explore that in a little bit more detail with you when we do your big assessment at the end. Some people prefer to write a timeline, and that's fine too. It really is just a prompt for us just to be able to touch base with you about some of the more significant events that have occurred in your life. So that paperwork, there's, reading through the code of conduct and signing to say you've read through that. There's, bits and bobs of paperwork that you do. And then once you're through all that and you're still happy to continue, then the assessment is undertaken. And what that is, it's called a step-by-step assessment, because we start with talking about your motivation, what's behind you wanting to care at this particular time in your life. And then we move through the assessment, talking about other areas of your life. So we would talk about your own experience of parenting. We might talk about your support network. If you're in a relationship, we would want to know how you can manage that relationship and also be fostering how you and your partner get along on a day-to-day basis, how you can support each other, how you manage stress, all sorts of things. We talk to you in more detail about some of the behaviours you might expect to see, and talk you through how you're going to feel about that and some of the things you can do. So it weaves its way through. It is a hefty document. It is what it is, but it can be done over time. Some people want it done and dusted, so they'll take a couple of days off work and go through it. Other people will meet every week or every couple of weeks, for an hour and just work our way through it. The time in which it takes you to proceed through the application process is really up to you. The based on how long it takes to get your probity done and things like that, I guess 4 to 6 months would be the minimum time it would take to get you through. But then saying that, we've got carers that have been in that application stage for years because they've stopped to do other things, but they obviously want to keep going, but going slowly. So once all that's done, everything's packaged up and goes to child safety. You see the assessment as well, so you get to comment on that, and you get to say, well, that's actually not what I meant, or that's not what I said. And so once you're happy with everything, we're happy with everything, you'll know what we're recommending. And look, if we think that you're for whatever reason you're not in a good place to foster it, that particular point in time, we're not going to put you through an assessment. We're going to say, oh, maybe, come back and see us in a couple of months or something like that. So that's pretty much the process. Has anyone got any questions? Yep.
Yeah. Question for you.
Yep.
Sorry. The question is about financial assistance or reimbursement or compensation. It's a very common question and a good one to ask.
Yep. So I'm going to hand that one over to Anna. There's different levels of reimbursement. You're not going to get rich fostering, so I'll just put that out there right now. But there's different levels depending on the need of the child. So Anna can explain that to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you don't go into fostering to become rich. That's true. So there is a financial contribution that you receive on a fortnightly basis when you provide the primary care of a child. So if you're the primary foster carer, and there's also a financial contribution to the costs for a respite carer. So per night they get a certain amount of money to support and allow some, some outings and so on. it depends, as Kathryn mentioned, on the level of the child's needs, how much that carer reimbursement, we call it, although it's actually not a real complete reimbursement, it's a contribution. So it depends on the child's need level of how much that is. And that varies from, you know, from general to intensive level 1, intensive level 2, complex level 1, complex level 2. So there is support there, for sure. And for extra, sometimes there are things like, I don't know, medical equipment or anything like that. You wouldn't be expected to pay that out of your own pocket. So you, the child safety does a funding request, it's called, and submits that to their management, and they then approve any additional costs. Yes, and I just got a saw the question if the payments for kinship carers are the same as for foster carers. Yes, they are.
And when we and if you guys, you know, if anyone out there wants to talk more about that, that would form part of us coming to see you and talking to you in more detail about what you were considering, you know, if you're open to children with a disability or, you know, complex needs, or, you know, or if we're just looking, if not just, but if we're looking at a generalist placement, which is where a lot of people start out. And so, you know, there's a lot that factors into that. And so, yeah, we would be able to talk to you more about that when we see you. Any other questions on that one, Katie? No? Okay.
No,
so
good.
Right, so we've probably, I'll go on to the most frequently asked questions. We've probably covered a lot of them. So we've covered that one. So after I've gone through these, if there's any other questions you guys have got, just let us know. So I'm single, can I foster? That's a yes. And this just, I guess, expands on those points. Okay. Do I need to have a spare room? Yes, in most instances, it's ideal. There are circumstances where, you know, if it's short term or, you know, if it's a sibling group, they may be able to, you know, they may be able to share a room, but it makes life a lot easier, because that young person, particularly when they're coming to you with a trauma overlay, they would need, they really do, it really does work better when they've got somewhere that is their own space set aside. But as I say, you know, that's where we default to, but there can be exceptions. There you go. In most instances, yes. I think we answered that one. No, you don't need to have your own home. And yes, demonstrate that your premises are safe. Part of the application process, we will go through with you what's called a home safety checklist, and that sets out what you need for different age groups of children, and also what you need to do depending on your home environment. So if you live on a rural property versus, you know, versus a suburban home versus an apartment versus, you know, whatever it might be. About your family. Can I have my own children in foster? Absolutely. With your children, we take their ages and their needs into account very much. The last thing we want to do is displace the children that you obviously already have, you know, and already adore. So again, we would default back to having you foster a child that is younger than your youngest child. However, there are occasions where someone, and I can think of two just off the top of my head, where a family has said, no way, we don't want another young child. We would be happier with a teenager that was, you know, happy to be with children. So, you know, we'll look at your circumstances, but yeah, we would default back to younger than your youngest child. Generally speaking, yeah. I should just keep clicking, then I don't have to talk. Will all my family be involved in the assessment process? Yes. everyone. So if you have children, then we will be talking to them. If they're older children, we'll have a chat. If they're little children, the assessor will, play with them and get them to draw some pictures or, whatever it might be. Even family, if you have children that are living away from home, we will contact them as well. And we will say, hey, do you know that mum or dad or, whatever, want to come, want to do some fostering? What do you think about that? And so we're going to contact the people around you. We're also going to contact members of your support network. So if you say that my next door neighbour, Martha, and, my dad, Jeffrey, they're going to be my main two supports, we're going to want to have a chat to them and just confirm, just make sure that they're happy with that and what that might look like. So we've talked a bit about this, and we're happy to talk more about it if you guys have got more questions. But just know that before we pick up the phone to you, unless it's an emergency, we've done a lot of work in the background. So we've met and we've talked about all our foster carers. We've talked about the child that's coming in, their needs, and our bank of foster carers. And we've thought, okay, well, maybe here, maybe there, maybe we'll call these 3 different households, and we'll find out, a little bit more. So you're not going to get a knock on the door and be delivered a child. Even if it's a crisis, we're still going to be picking up the phone to you and saying, this is what we've got. This is what we're dealing with. Are you able to help? Because if it's not a good fit for your family, it's not going to work for the child anyway. And, sometimes we would lose a foster carer. So, yeah, we're very careful. Can you choose the age? Yeah, go on, Katie.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, I think it's a really good time to mention as well the support that there is around foster carers. So when a child is placed, even though a lot of care is taken in matching and in placing, that child with your particular family and what you can offer them, I think it is good to mention that that Life Without Barriers have, practitioners that are really there to, to help you and to support you, like whatever you're going through, whatever the kids are going through. There's a 24-hour number. There's the training that Anna mentioned, and it's not like you are sort of getting dropped off a child sort of without, a team around you to help you manage sort of what might or might not happen.
Whatever Katie said was good. I've just got back. Okay. Can I choose the age and the gender of the child? At the end of your assessment, what happens? So you're not just, when you're approved, you're not just approved for a narrow band of fostering. So if your preference was a primary school child between the age of 8 and 12, you would actually be approved, you could well be approved for a child from birth up to 18. However, your preference would remain what it is. So you might come to me and say, this is what we're looking for. And so that would be in the assessment, and your preferences would be stated quite clearly. But as your assessor, I might think that you have the skills to actually broaden that. And when that's the case, I put that in as well, because the difficulty is that if you say, which again has happened, that we don't want anyone over the age of 8, and then we have an 8.5 or a 9-year-old young person come in that would be absolutely ideal, we couldn't approach those carers because they're not approved for that age. So from our point of view, we broaden it, but we're not going to come to you and say, you have to take this child. So your preferences are what we work on. And through the assessment process, that will become clearer through the training, the assessment, lots of conversations. You'll have lots of conversations within your family, and that will become clearer to you. And you might change over time as well, and that's the other thing. And that's why we broaden out your assessment if we can, because you might start with providing respite or short-term care to a very young child, but 5 or 6 years down the track, you might prefer to be providing a different type of care. That's a big yes, whenever it is safe to do so. And when you come along to our training, we talk a lot about that. So I won't spend a lot of time on that because, again, it's very, unless someone's got specific questions, it's very much dependent on, first of all, what's safe for the child, what's in the child's best interests, and, you know, where the parents are at in their own journey. But whenever it's possible and it's safe, we know it's better for the child to know where they come from. So what happens if the placement isn't working out? You have, as Katie was saying, you do have a lot of support. And actually, Katie, am I right in recalling that you've had a situation where placement wasn't working out? Is that right? Yeah. Would you be able to talk a little bit about your experience once you've taken yourself off mute?
Thank you. Yeah, look, it is really hard, and I'm really thankful that there's quite a bit in the training about your own self-care as a carer and how important that is to spend time, you know, looking after yourself and you know, to keep your immediate family, you know, well and you know, together as well. But it is really hard when a placement doesn't work out. So yeah, we took a 7-year-old boy. And, you know, we'd known him in the past, and so we didn't really take much counsel around taking him back as a placement. We really thought it was the right thing to do. He had changed a lot. He had spent, you know, 4 or 5 years not in our care, and in that time he had had numerous placements, and, you know, he'd spent some time back in his birth family home. And yeah, we had 3 children, 2 biological and 1 in care, living already in the home when he came back into our care, and it didn't work. It wasn't a good match. He really struggled. It wasn't more that we weren't the right family for him. We weren't the right family for him. We couldn't provide him what he needed at that time. We thought he was right for us, but we weren't right for him. So yeah, it was really hard. And having been a carer, already a caring family for like 15 years, or maybe 14 years, we kind of thought, oh, you know, we know what we're doing. So every single situation is different. Every scenario is different. And, you know, we're also really, really thankful that he has found a permanent placement with a couple who have no children, and they're able to provide him, you know, the most, you know, supportive and therapeutic and unbelievable placement. It was just, yeah, hard that he had to come and go again. But look, the more care experience you have, you do tend to realize what your own boundaries are, and, you know, what your own kids are going through, and how well you can read, you know, what sort of placements to say yes to and not what sort of placements to say no to. I've got loads and loads of stories. Some of them are really sad. Some of them I'm telling for like the 20th time during training, and I still cry. And some of them are really, really funny, like, you know, hysterical. Some of the things these kids get up to is pretty funny. So yeah, if you want to hear a whole lot more stories, you can come to the training, and I'll be there in the south anyway. So yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Katie. And look, you'll see Katie, she'll be, well, you'll either see her virtually or face-to-face, depending on where you are in the state, you know, when you come along to our training anyway, because she's, you know, she's part of the team, and she'll regale you with all sorts of stories about her colourful experiences as a foster carer. But look, you know, the reality is that placements don't always work out. We hope they will, but there's so many reasons why they might not. Throughout your placement, you are involved with Life Without Barriers case manager. And as we talked about a little bit before, you know, there is that wraparound care team as well. And the reason for those is so that hopefully we can pick up a problem when it's a 2 out of 10 problem, rather than waiting until it's a 10 out of 10 problem. But to be honest, that relies on you as carers a lot as well. And we cover this off in training. Unfortunately, there are too many times when carers think that they should be able to manage without picking up the phone. That, you know, I should have this, I should be able to do this. I don't want to, you know, them to think that I don't know what I'm doing, etc., etc., etc. What we want you to do is pick up the phone, because there's lots of support out there, but we can't help you if we don't know. If every time we're on the phone to you, you're telling us how wonderful everything is when actually it's not, then it's hard to help. And look, it's not even, you know, just about the child. There's other reasons placements can break down. We've had placements break down because of the ill health of the foster carer. We've had placements break down because foster carers have divorced, or they've moved away, or their elderly relative has had to come in, and in one case was walking around without his pants on. So there's all sorts of reasons why unexpected things can happen. Keep in touch with us, and we'll be there with you in that journey.
Kathryn, it's a really good time to plug how important respite carers are to us as well.
Absolutely.
Thinking about being a respite carer and think, oh, I can't really contribute much. It's just a weekend here or there, or a week in the holidays. Respite carers have been our absolute, saving grace sometimes. We really, really appreciate them, and it's a great opportunity for the kids as well to see how other families live, how other families who are stable and provide support and love and nurture. We don't even call it respite. It's just like going to have a sleepover. So if you're only interested in respite, that's fantastic as well, because they can really help carers, help primary carers to stay the journey.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Thanks, Katie. What support? Here we go. I won't spend really that much time on it. We've said it. We're there. There's a 24-hour helpline that you get to pick up in the case of an emergency, or something that's really concerning you. There'll always be someone on the end of the phone. You will have our case manager or our practitioner that will be very much part of your life. There's a team there. The assessor will be very much part of your life until such time as you have a child or a young person in your care, and then the assessor will transfer you over to that practitioner. And with the practitioner, you've got all the support that sits, I guess, behind us, that you don't need to be dealing directly with. So we've got, the department that is there to support you as well, but that comes through us. So you're not needing to make multiple phone calls and leave messages for people. Again, we can talk to you about all this more if you'd like to talk to us some more. Okay, yep, training, on-call support, financial support, carer networking. We have an awesome care ambassador in our team, and she is, a huge support, and that's our Katie. And Katie is very, very important part of your carer networking. You can access Katie, you can access her at this point in your journey, you can access her when you're a carer. She's there, she's on staff. She's very, very valuable. Other ways that you can network with other carers are during face-to-face training. That's a really good way that carers like to network. There's events that are there for carers. We're coming up to Foster Care Week in September, and there's also agencies, multiple agency carers. There's times when they come together as well. Do you want to say anything about that, Katie? You don't have to.
Oh no, there's lots on. There are a lot of. Are you talking about social events for carers to get together and kids to get together?
Well, just being able to network like they would with, I guess, like they would with you. They might pick up the phone because they just want to talk to, someone who's done it, who's been in the trenches.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I really I like talking about it. I think if anyone wants to have any more information about what it's like, I'm always here for a chat. Absolutely, we'll make sure my number goes out. Terrific.
Yep, I'm getting the we're coming to an end. I can't see the clock on my computer. So let me just go. So how much time have we got, Anna? Like, are we needing to stop?
People start leaving. It's 20 minutes past 8 already. So,
Okay,
maybe it's
well, we don't.
you
Well,
see
I
this
think I'll be fit.
yes.
I reckon. Give me a minute, and we'll be finished anyway. Because we've done a lot of this. So we've done this. What paperwork will you
We'll
need
flick
to
through.
complete? Oh, any other questions? All right. So if there are any other questions, we are here to answer them. If there are no other questions, then we will say goodbye, and someone from Life Without Barriers will catch up with you and just see if you would like any more information, if you'd like to stop your journey here, if you'd like to talk to an assessor, or if there's any other way that we can help. So we're here. If you want to ask.
Kathryn, I think we can post a link to a form. So if people do want to be contacted, then they can. No, we'll send out an email. Is that right? Send out an email. Great, fantastic.
Sorry, guys. We
Email
have
people.
Yeah.
two different heads. So I think actually what happened was I think Katie wasn't here at that time, but we decided that rather than that link, that we'd just pick up the phone to you guys and just, I mean, if you don't want to talk to us, don't answer the phone, or just tell us. We're not scary. We're not going to, there's no issues. We just want to make sure that you feel heard, I guess, because not everybody finds this type of forum easy. And, quite often in my experience, people attend these webinars. When I speak to them later, they've got all these questions that they just didn't feel comfortable raising in this forum. So that's why we do it. So no pressure, no commitment, you can say thanks, but no thanks, and that's all good too. So that's it from me. Is there any questions loitering, Katie?
Not that I can see. No more questions that I can see.
Lovely.
Yeah, great.
All right.
Thanks everybody for coming.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys. Okay.
Thank you very much. We will send an email out to you tomorrow for the people also that couldn't make it. That session is recorded. Pass it on if you want to, or yeah, we will be in touch as well. Thank you so much for your interest.
There's a super quick question about pets, and is it okay to have pets?
Yes.
Yeah, we love pets.
Absolutely.
Friendly dogs.
Yeah, horses, sheep, dogs, cats, mice, whatever you got is good.
Hey, Kathryn, just show the end screen slide for the contacts there as well.
Is there one more
people
slide?
might like to, might.
So if you want to write down, yep. So Katie, is that your right? Is that the correct number for you? Yep. Okay. So you've got Katie's number there, and you have my number, and you have our email addresses as well. And please get in touch. Not a problem at all. We're here to chat with you. Okay. So I can leave that up for a little while if you like.
We had one last quick question from somebody who is in their early 60s and asking if that is too old.
Yes, we want you. Yes, we
want
want you. We get asked that all. You're not too old to be someone's foster grandmother or father. I mean, truly, you can give so much. You may have more time. The fact that you're on this webinar,
more energy.
Yeah, more energy. That's right. But maybe. Yes, great big yes with an exclamation mark. We want you. Anyone else?
No more questions.
It's just that they're still all there. We've still got our participants. Well, we're going to hang out the next 5 minutes or so anyway. So if you've got any questions, that's absolutely fine. Otherwise, email us or text us or call us, whatever works for you. So I think that's it.
Great.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Lovely.